Welcome back to Dickin' Around Outdoors. Today we're going to install an AEV Fuel Caddy on the back of our JK. If you've seen our community page, we're getting ready to head up to Tuktoyaktuk, which is a village in Canada on the Arctic Ocean. It's a long ways away. It's not a real technical drive, but it is a long ways away and it's rather remote. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to make sure that we had some excess fuel with us. Not so sure we're going to need it. I think fuel's readily available. But if you want to do some exploring, if you are driving at night and places are closed, we just wanted to have that little extra buffer. So we're going to install the AEV Caddy on the AEV tire carrier, which is what it's designed for. So let me show you what comes in the kit when you buy the Fuel Caddy. The first thing that you get is the actual Fuel Caddy, which is a high density plastic. And this is designed to fit behind the spare tire, so it doesn't take up any storage space in the Jeep, which is something that we really wanted to avoid. So you get the Fuel Caddy, get a couple brackets, a bag of hardware, and some AEV stickers so that you can advertise proudly, I guess, that you have an AEV accessory. You get the fuel cap, which has a couple wings that make sure you don't lose it when you're fueling, and you get a siphon hose. That's the one, I'd say, downside to this caddy. Instead of having a valve on the bottom of it where you can just drain into the tank, you actually use a siphon hose from the top, but you do get the siphon hose with it. And to do the install, we're just going to use basic hand tools. We've got sockets, a couple ratchet wrenches, Allen wrenches. I just have two of those because I'm not sure what size it is, and a screwdriver to pry off the panels so we can get the third brake light out. And they do recommend putting anti-seize on everything, so we've got our anti-seize. So let's get the spare tire off and have a look at what we've got to work with. First order of business is we have to disconnect the third brake light so that we can pull the tire carrier off. So we need to get behind the panel here. And easy peasy to find, the connector is right here. So we're just going to disconnect the connection here, and we're going to pull it through the tailgate, through the grommet on the other side. Spare tire is now off, so the first thing we need to do is remove the third brake light wiring from the tailgate. So we're going to pull this grommet out and just pull it through. After that, we disconnect the turnbuckle so that we can swing the tire carrier out so that the tailgate's not in the way. Two bolts really hold in the tire carrier. We've got one mounting bolt and one anti-vibration bolt. So we're going to pull all that off, and then we can install the actual caddy. So let's get cracking on taking this stuff off. So I got to say, stripping this thing down was a lot easier than I expected. We disconnected the turnbuckle, and the tire carrier came right out. No problem with the bolts. So we're getting ready to go ahead and install the caddy at this point. So let's get that done. Time to mount the actual caddy onto the frame. Before you do that, you do need to run your third brake light and tire mount through the hole. And one thing I'll point out, there is a groove cut into plastic or molded into the plastic. That groove is for the brake light cord so that you don't bind it when you put it in. When I got my carrier, there was a little extra molding slag, I guess, I'm not sure what you call it, inside there that was kind of sharp, so I did file that down just a little bit. So let's go ahead. We're going to run our cord through. We'll line it up before we get everything tight. Slide this through, and then we need to mount this up onto the unit, which is a little awkward because you cannot see where the hole is. And do take care to make sure that the cord in the back is pulled up and out of the way. There we go. But of course the cord is now not up and out of the way, and now it is. So I won't say that I did that like a seasoned professional, but we're on and the cord is in the right spot. And I'll show you why that's important as we buckle up the brackets. All right, from the voice of experience now, we now have the cord running through here, and this is why it was important to kind of line it up in the channel, because AEV, when they wrote their instructions, didn't tell you where to put this cord until after all the brackets are mounted. What you do is you mount it above this bracket, like so. So now we're going to go ahead. We've got our anti-seize compound on all of our bolts, like they told us to, but do ensure that the third brake light is in that channel. If not, I've seen another video where luckily the person installing it noticed that this was in the middle and the anti-vibration bolt would have crushed it when he tightened it down. So do make sure that you get this into the channel. The next bracket that we're going to install goes on top of the unit, and they provide a little spacer, a grommet, that you need to press into this bracket before you install it, and that keeps the bracket and the upright tube from rubbing against one another. So make sure you install that. And I'm not sure. There we go. For shade tree mechanics like myself, top and bottom is always nice, but not too awfully difficult to figure out how these go on. So we're just going to snug this up, then we've got one more that we need to do, and we'll start putting everything back together. So our last bracket is a clamp that goes around the bottom, and it is a bit more awkward to work with for sure. You got to kind of line it up, you got to move the tank around a bit. So I'm going to see if we can get that started without much fuss. Alright, got it going. It just takes a little pushing and lining up. And this strap just holds on the tank and it lines everything up. Once you get it going, it goes on quite easily. And now we are done with our actual mounting brackets for the tank itself. All right, one thing we need to do, and I'm going to do this before we snug all the bolts up, is the actual carrier fastener. We need to go ahead and put through the hole and start into the carrier, get that lined up. And you want to make sure you get that started correctly because you don't want to strip it. Now, one thing you want to do is you don't try to snug this down. You need it to move back and forth because we put the tire on, and that's how we know how tight to put this. The other thing I'm going to point out is in the instructions, AEV talks about a sort of lock washer that has wings that fold over the bolt. Now on my install, when they did this, there is no lock washer like that, and AEV did not provide one of those in the bag. So I don't know if that's a thing of the past, but I've had this on for 7 years and I've had no problems. But I just did want to point that out, that AEV did not have that in the hardware. Okay, so getting the tire on, go ahead and snug it down. And what we're doing now is we're making sure that we adjust the bracket to the proper depth. So you put the tire on and you snug down the bolt on the other side until it's tight up against the fuel caddy. And then that tells you when it's adjusted correctly. All right, now that we have the spare tire snugged up, we go ahead and we tighten this until the tire squishes a bit against the fuel caddy, and that's how we know that it is adjusted correctly. Then we'll have to remove the tire one more time in order to put the anti-vibration bolt back in. All right, the last bolt that we have to put in here is the anti-vibration bolt. And I am going to just look down in there and check one more time that that light cord, the brake light cord, is out of the way, and it is. So now, rather tricky spot to get to actually. You have to go down through the hole and get this started. So in order to keep that bolt from falling out the minute I put it into the hole, I went ahead and put some grease into my socket to hold it in place. Let's get it down there. Try to get it started. And when you do this, when you tighten this up, make sure you push the tire mount bracket out as far as you can. And then that way it is lined up and ready to go. Are we started? It looks like we're started in good shape. So let's go ahead and tighten that down while pushing the back. And we are good. We're going to install the turnbuckle now, but before we do, I wanted to show you that AEV does supply a new Christmas tree so that you can strap your brake line or your brake light line back to the frame. I'm going to go ahead and install it into the frame, but I'm not going to connect it yet until I get this back into the tailgate. But I did want to show you, and I've got a hole here for this. So our turnbuckle's reconnected. We've got the brake light put back together and checked, and it's working fine. The last ceremonial duty is to go ahead and install the gas cap. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to stand on to fill this thing up? We now have an additional 10.2 gallons of fuel that we can take with us when we're traveling. I think this thing integrates extremely well. It's probably going to take a little bit of the viewing out of the back window, but with the 35-inch tire, there wasn't a lot there anyway. So I think we're good to go. The only thing that I probably don't like about it is just extra weight on the Jeep. That's lowering our capacity for gear by another 80 pounds or so when this is full. So just take that in mind when you're loading the Jeep, and load like a backpacker, I guess. So anyway, thanks for watching. We appreciate you every time. If you like the content, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. And as always, take care, and we'll see you outdoors.